Hello, my name is Stuart Lay, and I'm Director of Supply Chain and Director of Support Services at Denver Health. And I'm going to have a brief discussion on how an organization can set PAR levels. If you were to search Google for PAR levels, you're going to find 1,000 sites, and they'll all have an opinion on how to set a PAR level. But basically, it's a scientific formula. It is your average usage multiplied by your lead time with some element of safety stock. And many organizations have Excel spreadsheets that they use to try and calculate the PAR. But you have to be really careful here, because once you put it into Excel, it takes away all the thought, and the thought is where you need to put the effort when it comes to determining what a PAR level should be. So the first element is the usage. Now, the usage, you need to think about what type of product you're looking at. So some people say, oh, I will just look at 6 months usage. But if that product is used in a way that perhaps is only used once every 2 or 3 months, maybe you need to look at 12 or 24 months usage. So be careful when you choose your time scale to be looking at. And kind of try and be aware of whether you should be using the average of the product or whether it'd be better to look at the median. So we have some items that are used in orthopedic surgery that when you use them, you're using 3, 4, or 5 at a time, and we use them every, let's make something up, every 4 months. If you were to go on average, you would hold far fewer in stock than you need, and therefore, every time you go to use them, you wouldn't have enough. So do some homework and try and understand the usage of that product category when you decide if an average is good enough or if you need to be looking at that median quantity, if that will give you a much better answer to your question. And the other thing to look at is look at the usage patterns of it. Is this a seasonal product? Is it something where there's been a spike in usage? Is this spike going to continue to be used? Because once again, by the time you apply an average to it, the danger is you will under or over stock on that product. So make sure you have some awareness of how that product's going to be used. And just be careful on substitutions. Again, if you're using an automated Excel spreadsheet and this product has been out of stock for 4 months, your Excel spreadsheet is magically going to tell you don't need to hold nearly as many as you know you need to. So just be aware of how that product's being used, how it's being stocked at the moment. And one of the other problems that sometimes you can trip over is mixing units of measure. So perhaps you're using it in one of your hospitals by the case, and for a smaller hospital, you're using it by the each. Don't just add up the numbers, because it will not make sense. So just validate that you're using the same unit of measure when you come to do your calculation. And just have a look as well on high acuity items. So if you're a level 1 trauma center, you may well have to hold some stock of some items that logic would say you don't need to. So you need 5 in stock at any moment in time. Just make sure that you, again, speak to the people who are using that product and understand the acuity of it. So don't go you run your Excel, come up with an average if you only need 1 every 6 months, but they're going to say, when you actually need it, you need 4 or 5 of these at once, because we tend to use them in kind of a lumpy style of usage. So speak to your customer before you start messing around with PAR levels. Speak to the customer so they understand how you came up with that number. The second element of the PAR calculation was the lead time. And lead time is relatively easy for us to understand, but again, look at where you're procuring the product from. Is it coming from a central supply, in which case you're probably going to get replenished within 2 hours perhaps? How much safety stock do you need when you can be expected to walk down to your central supply department and gather those and take them back upstairs? You don't need a huge amount on the floor. If it's coming from distribution, perhaps your safety stock needs to be 24 hours worth, 48 hours worth. Or if it's coming direct from the manufacturer, in our instance in Denver, in the center of the country, if it's going to come from the East Coast and you don't want it to be super expensive overnight FedEx, you probably want to set that around 5-6 days. So again, look at your product families, look at where that product is being sourced from, and with that knowledge, decide what the correct level of lead time should be for that item. And the last element is the safety stock. And again, if you were to Google it, a lot of places are saying, well, take the average daily usage, multiply it by the lead time, and then take 50% of that as your safety stock. That kind of sounds to me like it's too easy to do that. Again, understand where that product is being used when you want to decide what that stock level should be. If you're a trauma center, there's probably a whole class of items that would be the wrong decision to make. So understand, again, it's really all comes down to understanding how the product is being used. The other element for us is perhaps an off-site clinic. If you're only going to that clinic once a week, to have a safety stock of 2 days worth, but you're only going there every 5 days, will probably not work. So have a look at those clinics, have a look at who your customers are, where those departments are, and talk to them, work through what you believe would be a sensible amount of stock to have there, and then set that up. And like everything else in supply chain, it will not be right first time. We always emphasize that to nursing when we go to a new department. These are not cast in stone. So let's review it again in 1 month, in 3 months, in 6 months. We can easily change a par level. It's not a big problem. So don't feel that on day one it has to be exactly correct. It will not be. These are things that par levels have a life of their own. So don't get hung up on total accuracy. And that really is how you would set up a process to look after your par levels.